Welcome back to the 980s podcast, hosted by yours truly, Kevin Thompson, founder and CEO of 980 Capital Group. Thank you guys for joining us. As I always say, subscribe to the channel. As I always say, go and get my book, Get My B to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@9icapitalgroup.com. Send us your questions. You go to the website at www.9icapitalgroup.com. Schedule your appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, and engage. And today we have Matt Middleton from Future Proof. Today we're talking all things future proof, what to expect in this next event, some of the big speakers coming out there. You don't want to miss this episode. Let's get it. So let me tell you who Matt is. Matt Middleton is the CEO and co-founder of Future Proof, a pioneering financial services festival that's transforming industry events. With over 2 decades of experience, Matt is recognized as a leader who challenges the status quo, driving innovation and collaboration in the financial sector. Under his leadership, Future Proof has quickly become a must-attend event, known for its dynamic lineup and focus on shaping the future of finance. Matt's commitment to inclusivity and strategic insight has made him a thought leader and a key influencer in the industry. So without further ado, Matt Middleton. Matt, thank you for joining the 980s podcast, my friend. And I'm going to tell you this. I big upped you. I gave you a great introduction. People are there's expectations out there, man. So I'm just telling you right now, but thank you for joining the 980s podcast, my friend.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Dude, man, I'm excited and when I'm honored, by the way, for you choosing us to go and have a conversation at Future Proof. But I know this is like a nascent type of event. It just started a couple years ago. Yeah. A lot of people in the industry don't necessarily know what this event actually is, but what you guys have done over the last couple of years have basically gone from like, hey, an idea to why this is a must go to an event. This is like a must see. So tell me about like, when did you, like, what was the idea that came up with this event and what kind of pushed you to start something like this?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, my background has been in financial media events, really B2B financial services.
Yeah.
So I worked at a pretty big company called Informa prior to this, and worked in every single sector of financial services. Early days fintech, when we didn't call it fintech, and it was like the boring rails of banking, all the way to what is very exciting now, which is the innovation happening in the REA space. So I've seen it in many different areas, and I've been a part of teams globally that built events and ecosystems and communities, and then leveraged that digitally. And so the kind of fast track to that is we basically developed many different ecosystems, and I started to understand like how you actually do that and really where there's a need. And so, when you think about launching a new brand or trying to, facilitate or develop a new community, it has to be an emerging trend. There has to be a catalyst for change, and there has to be, a lot of people inside the community to create the ecosystem that need to come together on an annual basis. So the kind of genesis story of what Future Proof is, I spent about a decade doing these events that are very similar, all different sizes. Found myself 2020, COVID, the entire industry shuts down, right? Yeah. So you have a lot of time to think. And at that time, at that time, there's a lot of talk about live events never coming back. Why would we travel around the country, risk our health, leave our family, waste the time, waste the money? And I just wasn't buying that, right? My view was, look, there's a lot of reasons why like digital opportunities and content, like what we're doing right now, amazing, right? Which is why we actually prioritize the experience over content at Future Proof. But really at that point in time, I was like, no way, especially our industry is built on relationships. Best 100%. Way to get to relationships and connections is in-person meetings and gatherings, right? And so what did I think happened then, right? At that point, I figured out the value prop of events prior to COVID, which was let's get, the hard to get speaker, the quote unquote industry thought leader, let's prop him up or her up as a keynote speaker. And hopefully that will put asses in seats. Right? Like that's gone. So what is now in its place? Well, what will motivate people to come out to feel energized about their work, their organization, and the industry at large. It's the experience.
Oh
It's
yeah.
focusing on connectivity. There's a reality that most events don't do well, which is they bring people together and you have really two cohorts, right? You have people that are on the industry circuit or conference circuit,
Yeah.
right? Familiar faces, names, whether they're on stage or in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have people that say conferences are a huge waste of time. I don't know why I would ever go there to meet with my peers. I should be spending time with my clients,
Yeah.
right? So these two camps.
Yeah.
The reality is most events service that first camp. And so they play into that. These folks come to these events. There's value. I don't want to say there's zero value, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not growing, right? You're
Yeah.
not being pushed to uncomfortable situations. You're not being exposed to people that think differently than you because it simply is just an echo chamber. It's just a live echo chamber.
Yeah.
And so what we focused on is how do we build an event that really transcends that, industry circuit norm? Bring these folks there, right? And then also bring some folks that aren't used to coming to events. And that collaborative nature facilitated with technology allows people to better connect. And so really post COVID, the idea was, well, if we believe that, well, then what's the right setting? And that's why we called it a festival, decided to be completely outdoors, right?
Yeah.
It's a competitive space. So we wanted to stand out. So yeah, I would say there's many different areas. When we first launched, everyone thought it was part of like the meme world and the crypto surge
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
2020. It was the
Crypto
complete opposite.
bros.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, here's another thing. Now we have a wealth management festival. It's definitely the top.
So one thing I've noticed is that you guys have done a great job because this is where I struggle, man. Like when I go to events, you put me in a room with somebody and I have to sit there for an hour and listen to somebody go through slides. I want to like hit myself in the head with a hammer. I'm like, no, man, that's just not me. You guys have done an incredible job of making like bite-sized information. And if you want more information, hey, we can have more conversations. Talk to me about the advent of that. Like what pushed you towards that?
Yeah, so it's another thing, you think about what was and what should be, right? And
Yeah.
so what was is you build 50-minute sessions composed of panels. You have really quality people, but they don't have enough stage time
Yeah.
to actually get thoughts out. So everyone's basically saying, our belief is this, and then patting each other on the back. The next person goes and says the whole dance. No one on stage provides value. They get no value out of their time that they're committing. And then equally, the people in the audience are sitting there like, I read the topic and description, and that's not, that's not what I got here.
Yeah.
And so everyone just leaves underwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is because we're building for CE credits, that 50-minute in the old traditional model is important because we are conditioned to think the reason why I go to these events, the value prop is that I get CE credits.
Yeah.
The truth is, again, digitally, you could get CE credits by cramming into one whole day. And
Yep.
so we're not built for CE credits, right? Like,
Gotcha.
yes, we offer them, but we're not conditioning or manufacturing our agenda to produce as many CE credits as humanly possible.
Yeah.
The other side to that is, well, what makes great content? Really insightful people, either well-known or under the radar with
Yeah.
interesting takes,
Yeah.
having conversations. And our goal is to have formats that allow people to have more thoughts on stage. So either standalone or like two-person conversations,
Yeah.
and give them enough time to challenge people in the audience to create more conversations off stage.
Yeah.
So we cover a variety of topics. Remember, Future Proof isn't just an investment management event. It's not just a fintech event. It's not a practice. It's all of this. So
Yeah.
we have people building REA firms across every function at every level. So we have to create content that services all of that. The way to do it is short, punchy, practical advice meant to either provoke or challenge your thinking, and then allow those people, those thought leaders on stage to come out and hang out and have conversations off stage, because that's how we push this industry forward.
So you mentioned challenging, and this is one thing that I want to get in. I want to talk about because I think our industry has a lot of groupthink at times. You know what I mean? Like you have to think this way, and this is all the panel thinkers. They have their thought process, right? And everybody's like shaking each other's hand. They're patting each other on the back. But then you have that one person that says something differently, and they're shunned from the community. Like, oh, this guy just like, and like what's your position on that? Like, are you more towards like giving people an opportunity to kind of go against the mold, or are you kind of like, oh, let's keep everybody happy in the sandbox? Like what? I know we're not one side or the other, but is this festival more about just having group thought leaders come out and position certain things without having to be, shunned by the community?
Look, I think it's a great question. I also think it's somewhat of a loaded question because I think there's people out there
I didn't mean
that,
to load anything, man.
no, I think there's people out there that provoke as a growth strategy.
Gotcha.
And I think that's wrong too.
Yeah.
We encourage people and we recruit. So another main component or value prop of Future Proof, it's a no pay to play model.
Yeah.
Other events, most events, it's people pay for a speaking role. And so as a, organizer, you don't really have an editorial standard.
Gotcha.
You say you do, but at the end of the day, the folks that are paying your bills, you have to put on stage. So it's a little bit of a softer side. What we do is we look at it and, kind of backtracking each year, we assess what's happening in the industry.
Yeah.
I think most events make it more about them versus about the industry, which they get lost, especially if they get a little bit of success. They're like, oh, look what we did. Look what we did.
Yeah.
We never think like that. We're like, we had an idea. We launched the idea. The community is now morphing this event experience, the content, what we do, and we get to be the lucky stewards of that, right?
Yeah.
And so we have that same idea with content, which is we look at it very structurally and say, what are the things that people are talking about at an industry level?
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that excite us personally? And what does our research tell us? And then from there, we facilitate what are the questions we want to answer at this event? Not here's our theme, growth, AI, tech transformation, what have you. It's no. How do you define growth? Well, because we bring together so many different folks from this event that if we just talk about growth and make generalizations or assumptions that growth is M&A and strategic capital or growth is, marketing, like, no, it's all of that. But to this individual, this attendee, which we're building for, it's only this. So getting a variety of people, thoughts, ideas, and therefore topics so that people could create their own agenda and therefore create their own adventure is our goal. And that means that we might have some people that are very public about debating certain ideas on stage, which we encourage. As long as, look, it's a B2B event, it's a professional setting.
Yeah.
We encourage that type of dialogue because we want people to think differently and not have groupthink.
Yeah. So with any idea, we start with a vision, right? We start with a vision and then it morphs into something else. What were some of the challenges, especially like during the beginning, that you faced getting this Future Proof off the ground?
Yeah, look, most people, I think, take for granted the event industry at large.
Yeah.
It's a massive, it's $1 trillion industry as a whole globally.
Yeah.
In a B2B space, it's one of the largest marketing areas of a budget.
Yeah.
When you think about putting on an event, they're all cookie cutter, right?
Yeah.
They all change the name. The experience pretty much stays the same. The structure of the agenda and the format, you're conditioned to get an AM break, a PM break, a lunch, a breakfast, a networking event, etc.
Yeah.
So for us, like, we were our own enemy in that. Is like, how do we break everything that we believe to be true of this? Just is why the mold, you do, man.
Yeah,
exactly. So first principles thinking. So with that, you have a lot of opportunity. You're like, oh, we could do this and this and this. And then you come to the realization, well, all right, we're not in the hotel. So like little things, like I never had to pay for bathrooms before, right? Running an event business. So it's like little like things where you're like, oh, I didn't realize like we actually are building a mini city now from scratch.
City ordinances, permits and all the other stuff. Yeah.
So the political process of this, it's something that I never had to do. We usually deal with a single hotel venue. Yeah. This we're dealing with, over now 15 hotel venues. We're getting approvals through the city of Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
They have to not just approve once, but every phase of development has to get approval. The fire marshal then has to come in. Then you're, serving many different people. So there's a benefit to, oh, we have no walls, no ceilings, and it's free. It's also nerve-wracking for us and for folks because people are like, wow, we get to show up different. Well, what does different actually mean? Yeah. Right. And so I would say it wasn't so much challenge. It was fun. Like, it was different. It wasn't something that I felt like, oh, I could do this in my sleep.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say, the biggest hurdle we had to cross was the industry adoption, that this is an important professional event and that we could both have important professional event while also casual, comfortable, exciting, right?
Yeah.
And those two worlds didn't collide prior to Future Proof. And the year one, there was a lot of skeptics, a lot of public naysayers. We had a strong foundation of about 1,700 folks. Once they seen it, they're like, I get it.
Yeah.
And they became our ambassadors. Year two, we had 3,000 people. Some of those naysayers converted, right? And they were like, maybe I'll attend, check it out. We still can, put our brand here.
Yeah.
And then those people came and experienced it and were like, oh, I get it. And now we're, encroaching on 4,500 people this year, 300 sponsors. And now the conversations are like, how is not everyone doing something like this, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the hardest part of, going 0 to 1 is like being on calls. You could imagine being on calls with some of the larger asset managers, conservative. I'm like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. We're going to create a wealth management festival. And they're like, great idea, right? And so it just takes time to evolve and see like the concept to, come to fruition. But like I said earlier, like now it's at a point where it's on us not to mess it up and to give people what they want and need to continue growing. And the community will decide, what it looks like in 3 years' time.
It's funny because one of my buddies grew up in California, and we're gonna stay at his Airbnb at his spot in Newport, which is right outside of Huntington Beach. And he was like, "Hey, so where are we going? Like, where's this festival?" I said, "Huntington Beach." He's like, "But where?" Huntington Beach. I was like, I don't know. He said, "You mean on the beach?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess it's Huntington Beach." So that's how much I know about California. He's like, okay, I get it now. Yeah, I can see where it's gonna happen. But yeah, I didn't have an address. I was like, it's just Huntington Beach, man. That's all I can tell you.
But what's funny about that? Like a lot of people, like, and you could sit there and explain it to them, having not been, you could sit there and explain it to them of all the things different. They could see the pictures.
Yeah.
And then they still go back to like, all right, but what venue is that? It's like, no. It's literally like on the beach. We convert a parking lot and it's across the entire city. They're like, okay, but like, where's the venue? It's like, just come and experience it. Come with an open mind.
Man, I love what you're doing because it's actually different. It's the reason why I'm in the business myself, because I got braids and all the others. Like I want to be different. Like people, the way I think COVID made this happen. Like we're just kind of transitioning, being more ourselves. We don't have to put the suit on and kind of placate the masses. I'm like, hey, this is what I do. I'm a financial advisor. I think what you're doing is tremendous, man. Again, you're providing us an opportunity to have this conversation. So what can attendees expect at this year's event at Huntington Beach? And I also know you have more events. So let's just start there. Like you have an event in Colorado, right? You did one in Colorado.
Well, hey, before we throughout the year, that, I just want to touch on something that you said, because I think it's very important. And I think the COVID accelerated this, but I actually think this was happening prior. And I think I have a couple of reasons why I think this is the case.
Go ahead.
Our industry has always been conditioned to transform people, and not in a good way. You want to be in financial services and wealth management, if you're fortunate to have like a mentor to give you access into the industry, well, then you conform. Your hair changes, the clothes you wear changes.
Gordon Gekko. You become the Gordon Gekko.
Exactly. So there's this stigma to like, if you want to be in the in crowd, you have to be that. And the reality is and I went through this myself. So like I grew up, dirt poor, Yonkers, New York. Didn't like, the reason why I'm in this industry is because I watched movies and I was like, oh, they have money. They look like they have great lives. I'll do that for school. Right. Which is the wrong reason of doing that. But again, I didn't have that education or exposure. And so then I graduated, financial services degree, was like, naive, and it was exciting. Like, oh, let's go do this. And I couldn't get access to anything that was like a real job, let's say. And so I found myself very discouraged. I ended up getting like an entry-level job at this company, was Informa, it's rebranded now. And found my way back into the industry through media. And now I, get to kind of usher in this platform, if you will. But I went through that my whole life. It's like, you come out fresh out of college thinking like, the world is you just have so much opportunity. You're 22, 23, 24. And then you're like hit with, I'm having conversations. And my thing, I was, outside sales, having conversations. If I was fortunate to get conversations with executives, like they were not like me and I was not like them. And so then quickly I was questioning myself, literally thinking about the words I was using, and not in a good way, like becoming a shell of myself. It took me a whole decade to do that, wildly successful, because I have this chip on my shoulder that like, I'm going to persevere, I'm going to be successful. So I worked harder than everyone else. Found myself at 30 like miserable personally and miserable professionally. Didn't really love the industry, either the events and media industry or the financial services industry, and just had like a wake-up call and was like, I gotta be myself. Like that's how I have developed these relationships with people, right? And I say this to a lot of people that I mentor. It's like, the more you are yourself, the better you are to build stronger bonds and develop the career that you need and want. Because what happens is, if you're conditioned and you're, a shell of yourself, describing like, well, you're never going to build sticky bonds with people.
Yeah.
And COVID was a really good reminder of that. Is when COVID hit and the world shut down and everyone's, focused on their health and kind of anxious as a whole, the people that I checked up on professionally and the people that professionally checked from my professional network that checked up on me,
Yeah.
it wasn't the companies and clients that spent the most money with me. None of that. It was the people that I would see often and had really in-depth conversations about family. Maybe we grew up in the same neighborhood or in the same similar structure. Maybe kids are the same age. Maybe you have the same interests or hobbies. Whatever that connection point was, that was the people. And so that was like the aha moment. Like when we talk about, why future proof, the idea here is that if we could create a platform that allows people to be more of themselves in a professional setting, well, maybe if that platform becomes large enough, we could change the optics of this industry.
Yeah.
And so the other layer to this that we create is the media amplification of this, right? We have CNBC live streaming. We have Bloomberg taping live. We have over 50 different media outlets at this event. Well, guess what happens? And you just described it perfectly with your friend. Like, oh, your friend's not in the industry. And you're like, I'm going to this festival. Great. And now people are scrolling through Instagram.
Yeah.
The same thing that people are talking about, oh, I'm going to Coachella. And it's like, that's what you talk about with your friends.
Gotcha.
In the same breath, they're scrolling and seeing future proof. Not saying that they're interested in attending, but it's like, these two events don't feel drastically different and has this cultural like feeling. So now maybe people that are conditioned or were taught that they're not deserving of wealth management services are now saying like, this is more approachable. Oh, I get this industry now. Maybe I should go and talk to someone. And that helps us future-proof the industry at whole, but really change the optics of what it should be. So sorry, I went on a tangent there, but I think that was really important of what you just said.
No, but it's important you just said that, because we all become this caricature of this idea, whether it be Billions, right? You watch Billions, you go, that's who I have to be. Or you're watching Gordon Gekko, that's who I have to be. And it's the media's portrayal of what we're supposed to be, which again, the industry is nothing like that. But one thing we also have to understand is that the media's portrayal of anything in life is always extravagant. It's never real, right?
Very true. Very true.
But I've come across that in this industry where people slick their hair back. I'm like, what are you doing? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And it's just a nightmare just to deal with. But man, I love what you're doing. And it's a couple more questions if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But like, so the expectation is you're wanting to change the industry. You want to have something that people can come to, that can be themselves and not necessarily have to kind of be that guy in the suit. Like, hey, how was your year? You know what I mean? We can have real conversations. So from getting the speakers, like what are certain dynamics you're looking for when you're asking or people are asking you to come in and have conversations about, can I get 30 minutes?
Yeah. So look, I think, I've been very fortunate in my career for people like, even like, Josh and such, like the kind of story behind that is, we used to have Barry come and speak at some of our events. We'd always, Barry's just like an interesting guy. So we'd always have do like our keynote, celebrity, paid speaker interview, because he would just go on tangents and it was the best. And so like I got connected with the whole Rithold kind of entourage through Barry, then got to know, Josh and Michael really well. And then we actually launched an event together in my old company, short-lived, but really just kind of loved what they stood for. There's this layer to, kind of the openings, if you will, to the industry. Like those guys are very influential.
Yes.
Right.
This is the reason why I'm talking to you today, by the way.
Well,
Is what we're
exactly,
talking about.
right? All of these connection points. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's the one thing that matters here. So kind of answer your question, I always take calls with anyone and everyone. It's like I have an interesting idea or I have something that, people haven't, might have heard of. And look, some of those calls are like, I want to pitch my product to your audience. And so
yeah,
maybe it's time a little bit wasted,
yeah,
but I would say there's, about half of those calls, it's people that are coming with really creative views on the industry and have something different to say. Or like, hey, I read this by that person and I actually disagree with it. I think it could make for great content. So
yeah.
I would say like, and encourage people to continue. I'm pretty open. I'm available. Jump into my inbox. We'll set up some time. We'll review it that way. The way our kind of editorial process works is we do phases. So the first phase is we gather feedback from the pre-existing audience. So that's everyone, like what went right last year,
Yeah.
what wrong, what did people feel like was missing? And that gives us like the baseline of like what we want to do from a content experience next year. The next piece of that is we actually close off ourselves from what you described, like media and trends and what
Yeah.
everyone's saying, other conferences are having. I don't look at any other conference. What are the things that I'm hearing, that I'm feeling, that we are seeing? I then run that list, I create a list, and then I bounce it off the Ritholtz guys because they're quite literally building a fast growing RIA.
Yeah.
So there's a level to the fact that like I will never be able to create real content in that way of like the intricacies of this function and how this, like, all right, this is what people are saying, but here's what's really happening.
Yeah.
And granted, it's one point of view, so I have to blend that, like what their point of view is, with then researching that.
Yeah.
And so we go through this process of really from month 12 to month 3 to go.
Mhm.
It's all of this like closed door conversations. You get maybe 300 topics and ideas down to 150. You then go challenge that to the people in the industry and rank that. Then you land on 100 plus sessions. From there, then you have the luxury of going and finding the right people. And then that all happens from really 3 months into 1 month to go.
Yeah.
And then from 1 month to go, you're doing all the planning and prep and everything. And so there's no like, here's the blueprint. It's a little bit more of I like to say it's like events are so great because, like I'm not an artist by any means. I couldn't draw a stick figure if I wanted to, but this is my masterpiece. Future Proof is like an artistic experience. And that is everything from, your sight line right when you walk in. What do people see? What do people smell? What's the sensory experience to it?
Yeah.
And then what is the content and education? And so all of that plays a role. And each year it could be completely different, right? It's not a rinse and repeat.
So is this going better than your expectations? Is it going below your expectations, or is it just like you didn't expect anything when this started?
No, I had I'm pretty aggressive expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going as planned.
Okay.
I think I was out and quoted that, the plan was to get to 10,000 people by 2025. And we're on that path. So
you're a little different than me. I'm just like, hey, I want to start something. I don't know where it's going to go. It could blow up. It could do great. I'm just kind of just doing something and seeing what happens. And that's probably my downfall. I get it. But...
No, I think it's good to be like that. I'm both, I guess. Starting it, I had a very big vision and steps to where, like, how I would get there.
Yeah.
But I would say, and you could talk to my team about it, like, I never focus on, like, what's our KPIs to get to this metric. It's like, just focus on all the inputs. The scoreboard will be the scoreboard at the end of the day. If we prioritize each and every day and make every hour worth it, collaborate as a team, and those inputs are right, the end result will be what we designed. And that's good enough for me.
Last question real quick. Like, so Future Proof, like, why the name? Where'd it come from? I know it probably should have been the first question, but again, I don't give a damn about where the questions come from. I just want to have a conversation. Future Proof, like, why the name?
Yeah, I mean, well, Future Proof in itself, right? I think our industry is transforming in a way, and the larger wealth and asset management industry is, right? Operationally, it's changing drastically. Our client base is changing. The way technology is transforming both how we operate, how we service the client base, how we think about areas that once was the value prop, investment management, that maybe even just outsourced completely, right?
Yeah.
So there's just a constant sea change occurring in our industry. Now you look at it from well, what does the shift in 10 years look like? The
Mm,
truth is, we can't sit here and say this event without naming it, right? This event is, you know, I don't know, like wealth management 2030 and feel good about that. We're going to plan for 2030. The truth is, we don't know what that future is actually going to be.
yeah.
No one at the event, no one speaking at the event, no one attending at the event knows that. But future proof as a concept is you are in a constant iteration to define your future state at this industry. And that's what it is. How do
Gotcha.
you future proof yourself and your firm so that you are prepared for what's coming, which is
Mm,
always constant in constant change?
yeah.
And that you not only prepare, but that you actually get ahead and help shape it. And that's what we try to do as a community. So future proof has more of a verb than it is of a noun in terms of an event name.
Awesome, man. Awesome, man. Well, thank you for joining me, man. I like to keep these short. And by the way, I heard you from Yonkers. So what does that make you? A Mets, a Yankees fan? Where are you at there?
Man, I'm Yankees. I am Knicks. I'm Rangers, and I'm unfortunately a suffering Giants fan right now.
Well,
I,
hey,
I live in outside of Boston now, though, so it's fun because my wife's like all Boston sports fans, and so we have
don't
a
fall for that.
boy,
Hey,
and I'm just like,
now they have the reality of life kicking them in the teeth outside of the
yes,
Celtics, of course.
exactly, yeah, yeah. I mean, it is title town for sure. It's crazy what they were able to accomplish here.
Oh my God. Hey, well, thank you for joining the 90s podcast. Tell the people who haven't registered yet, is registration still available? I know it's next month. It's getting close.
Yeah, so registration's available for the next couple of days. If you want to participate in our meetings program, which is the best way to connect with all attendees at the event.
Mm.
After that, so after August 16th, you could still register and participate in the live experience up until the event date. Hotels are selling out fast. So if you want to go and interested in what we just talked about, futureproofhq.com will get you access to our entire business and all the events we offer on an annual basis.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you joining the 90s podcast. I would get this up and running as quickly as possible. Thank you for the opportunity again to have conversations at the event, and hopefully we can make it entertaining as
Yeah,
well.
definitely looking forward to it. Thanks, man.
That was Matt Middleton, CEO of Future Proof. We talked about the festival that's coming up, how he's changing the industry. The industry is changing. It's no longer the boring, hey, we're going to sit in this thing, get some CE credits, and be on our way. No, we're talking about an engaging atmosphere that's going to be happening in September at Huntington Beach, California. And we're going to be on the beach having conversations and changing the narrative on how this industry is supposed to be done. Thank you guys for joining the 990s podcast. Subscribe to the channel. Don't forget my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@9icapitalgroup.com. Send us your questions. You go to the website at www.9icapitalgroup.com. Schedule an appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, and engage. And today, it's all about future proof. Stay humble, stay safe, my friends. I'll see you again soon.